Hey everyone, my name is Jordan Wong. I'm an artist based here in Cleveland, and I do everything under the name WONGFACE. And today we're at the Sculpture Center for my exhibition, and I'm hanging out with Young Cleveland Renaissance.
So I'm like really thinking like even just being able to like see like episodes or just have be able to tie into like the plots of like cartoon shows and stuff that we were all kind of consuming at the same point and just appreciating that wow, these were people at that time who had the foresight to not only create these shows but then to talk about these topics that then fit in with these conversations that were going on. And now like we're those adults that are able to activate galleries and animations and shows and storytelling in ways that are genuine to us. And it's just like it's sick, man.
Yeah,
it's so cool.
All that stuff that we've watched and consumed, it's now just like source material.
Yeah, right.
It's just source material. It's just
What was your favorite show growing up, bro? Like, what was your like your top? Let's do like a top 5 like absolute must cartoons that like informed like WONGFACE and like your whole identity.
I feel like everyone says Dragon Ball.
I mean,
everyone says Dragon Ball. Everyone says Dragon Ball Z. GT. So I want to make a note. That's like special mention, but I don't know if I want to make that top 5. I feel like everyone says Naruto as well. Naruto was like big for me, and like
I feel like that's kind of like
middle school.
Modern day. You said. Wait, so you was watching Naruto at what point?
When I was in middle school. So the very first time I watched Naruto was a friend of mine. Her name is Kathy Wu. She was like the only other Asian student that was older that I knew. So she was older than me, and I think we were talking about anime or something. She's like, "Oh yeah, have you watched Naruto?" I'm like, what is that?" So she like burned some episodes on a CD or no, a DVD for me to like watch on my computer.
Yeah.
So that was like before anything was streaming, before like during that time like Toonami.
Yeah.
Like had anime, right? But it was all dubbed.
Yeah.
And there was just a small selection. I think Naruto was like one of the very first like subbed animes that I watched. So that was like really formative. Oh my god, this conversation is gonna go too long if we talk about anime.
Well, no, don't worry. At some point, I'm gonna cut you off and be like, yeah.
All right, I'll just kind of like list some that like.
Naruto is crucial.
Yeah, Naruto.
Well, I mean, I think just real quick though, but I think that is worth noting. Like, shout out to your friend, like shout out to your homie, because you really got like a mixtape or like a burned disc like before that was a thing, and it was like, yo, homie, like I want you to have this so bad that like, yo, don't worry, I burnt it up real quick, put it on the disc, and like at that age, because like for me, I asked you that because I'm like, dude, I feel like I didn't really like Naruto didn't hit the radar for me until like I was in like high school or like it was much later. And I was gonna say like I feel like Naruto is kind of like present day Dragon Ball Z for like so many young artists, where it's like that's our like like I being born in like 93, like I caught the Dragon Ball Z wave because my cousins were already consuming it. Like they were already like hip to it because they were younger and they already. So I think like a Naruto was kind of like for us like our thing that we can kind of be like, oh, like seeing like that character development arc and like how all of the things that like Dragon Ball Z had, and it's
still going.
Yeah.
Like with Boruto and it's crazy.
It's fire. Okay, so you said Naruto will be like a hard pick.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Like Dragon Ball and Naruto for sure.
Yeah.
And I only bring up Naruto because of that like core like childhood memory, right? Yeah. But other ones like Full Metal Alchemist, both like that first series and then Brotherhood, Gurren Lagann, which was actually when I was a little bit older, Trigun, God, there's so many, Studio Ghibli. I know that's not anime, but just
that whole world.
Yeah, just thinking about like different things. Oh my God. Yeah, so many, like, food wars. I love food wars. I know that's, like, more, again, kind of a little bit more recent than, like, some of those old ones.
It all counts. I
but,
mean,
like, yeah, like, I remember
counts.
just watching a bunch of things, like Samurai Champloo. I remember watching, like, things like, do you remember Afro Samurai?
Yeah, how can I forget?
Afro Samurai was
between Samurai Champloo, Afro Samurai,
yeah.
and Boondocks, like
That's
probably like my trifecta right there of just everything that I would need to understand. Like, this anime world is so extensive, and there's so much storytelling and world building just inherently there that I think, one of the things that really, I think it naturally drew me into your work was, I remember specifically my first time seeing your work. It was a Spaces gallery, and you had one of the Gundam boxes on display in the gallery. Yep. And so
I mean that's the bigger version, but like the actual small, like,
it was
it was like literally like a paper model, but then there were prints of like the designs and the artwork that would be on the front and back, like they were a little bit larger. I
remember seeing it. I remember seeing it and I was like, who the heck is this dude? Like, what the like, I was just like, yo, no. I was like, no, this is somebody that is doing it locally, but also doing it like globally, like in the sense of how they're approaching their craft. And I was so stoked to see it because, like, well, selfishly, it was a lot of the influences and stuff that I loved. Yeah. But then just seeing it happen in the city from someone, at the time, I was like, well, I'm the only person thinking like this. So. And then I saw your work, and I'm just like, yes! Like, I was equally stoked as much as I was just like, what? Damn, there's somebody else. So it, like, naturally just was like, yo, like, yeah, he gets it. Like, and then just being able to lean more into, like, your background and understanding that you come from graphic design and then hearing like your Facebook story, and then, like, it was just all of these moments that were just like, yeah, like this is someone who is carving a path for themselves in this art world, and then in this art world and in this space where it's just constantly changing and evolving, and it's like this person isn't waiting to be told per se, like, oh no, you should present it this way, like this is allowed. And I think just that rebelliousness, if I may call it that, is just something that, we're kind of kindred spirits or whatever the expression is in that regard, where it's just like, yeah, I like the rules, those are cool, but fuck them. And we're gonna do it this way, or the ways that we see best fit. Like, can you talk more about just how, in this space, like how you've been able to just navigate being able to work with, just different resources, but then staying true to your vision and being able to honor your vision, but then also be able to show up with these just different deliverables?
Yeah. Well, real quick before I answer that, I want to share that I had a very similar moment when I came across your work. and Mocha, just like seeing like how you were, there's very much like an element of the drawing, but then like these like, these things that would be very much found in like graphic design and like identity works and branding, and you're using it as part of your own artistic language, and then even playing with like, the gallery itself, right, as far as like that like fake grass that you had, like turf, just the turf, right, like those decisions. I was like, who is this? I was like, this is like, I've never seen this, right? So I had a similar moment in seeing your work, like, oh, like here's someone else that's also kind of playing with like similar ideas or approaches, but very much in their unique way. So I had a similar moment for sure.
I appreciate that.
To answer the question of like just working with like different people, different opportunities, and kind of bringing the work to life in these different ways, and how I've been able to kind of, I guess, like you said, stay true to my vision. I'm a broken record. I always talk about relationships, right? Like, such a broken record with this, but it's really,
important though.
You know,
it's important.
So we had some folks in the gallery earlier, and I was sharing with them that as much as like drawing and like seeing and being able to create, you know, compositions and things with color and utilize imagery and icons, right? Like the image making portion of my practice, as much as it, like that's foundational, so also is the relationship building.
Yes.
Because that's what allows me to inspire the people that are working on my stuff and have them like commit to it just as much, if not sometimes more than me.
Pivotal.
Right? So it's really prioritizing that as also part of the art practice of like, oh, it's crucial that that I take care of the people that I get to work with. Yeah. And when I say by take care of, that means, you know, being organized on my end, providing clear direction, being extremely understanding of the challenges that they're going through, and instead of like disconnecting or saying like, well, that's a you problem, very much, you know, be there with them and be like, okay, we're a team.
I love that.
Like, all right, let's talk about this together. Let's explore together, you know, when things go awry or we run into hiccups, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So, and that's what's allowed me to explore different possibilities for the work and to also create things that, you know, are of quality and precision that makes me all giggly and excited about the work, and you know, also allows me to see even greater opportunities. It's like, okay, we built this, you know, or we created this. Now, like, whoa, what if we do that, right?
Yeah.
Like, or like, oh, remember when we did this one project? Like, I want to do that, but like on a greater scale or different material, or, you know, combining another process. So the relationship aspect is so crucial to my art practice.
Yeah, I love that you touched on that for so many reasons. I think the first thing that got me just stoked on that statement and that expression is so often so many artists think that, you know, you have to be a lone wolf in this pursuit.
Right.
And it's like, oh, it's me against the world, or oh, like, you know, they reach or might hit these ceilings that they might want to be like, okay, I aspire to get to certain spaces, but why am I not getting there? And a lot of times the answer is outside of themselves. It's like you just may have not connected to that right person, right, that might allow for that what appears to be a ceiling to be like, hey, you just come out here and you'll be outside, and then there's not a ceiling at all. And then you can continue just going up until, you know. Right. And I think a lot of times it's like we're given very, oftentimes it seems like as artists, it's like we can only exist and do things in a certain way. So it's like we're hurled with these limitations and stuff that are thrown at us that I think we're kind of conditioned to feel that we can only create in certain ways. And you being able to touch on the point of relationships, I think in today's age is so crucial, because with the internet, with so many different tools, you can create your own ecosystem of support that will essentially help you ascend to wherever spaces that you dream. And I think you are such a great example of that, because being able to get, like you mentioned, being able to get these other partners to see your vision, whether it's an institution, whether it's a contractor or a fabricator, I'm sure like all of it is like as I'm taking it and as I'm understanding and appreciating what you said, it's like everybody in the village has to get cared for in order for the village to take care of and to produce whatever it is that village needs to produce to keep it sustaining and running and stuff like that. And I think where we're just moving in time and just with the art spaces changing, I think a lot of these institutions are no doubt looking at your example and looking at the stuff that is happening on the ground level of like, okay, well, how can we, more so step into our own identity as a much larger entity, and how can we support those doing the work instead of it being the other way around. The other thing I think that makes me also excited about you touching on the fact of relationships is, again, by you demonstrating, it suddenly makes it easier and not as taboo to do other collaborations, and how that's also just trickling down in the community. You touched on something about, having work that is then referred to by other works, and I think shout out to Toby Griffiths and the regard of, him creating the Inner Museum, which both of us were referenced in this work by Toby Griffiths. And
we were featured.
We were featured, had our own worlds in that. And I think just even in just moves like that, and people being able to recognize, just this larger, organism that is Cleveland's art scene that we see here is developing before our very eyes. It's the fact that he took something that he was inspired by and gave us a part of his platform. And then, my response to that was escaping awful land, which it was like we were able to take a piece of that conversation, expand upon it further. And so it's like we're all now kind of we were already having this dialogue, but now what's interesting is the dialogues are starting to quite literally connect. So now, anyone that is looking into a space like Cleveland, and they're seeing all of the activity and all of the, everyone kind of coming together and just being like, hey, like, what if we do this? Let's try this out and stuff. And it's like, it's happening, and it's happening on a level that the artists are doing it, which I think is very significant. And shout out to Nida Kamal for this reference, more or less. But we talk about this idea of like artists being like canaries in a coal mine. And when you think about that illustration or that example of how canaries were used in coal mines in times where, that predated the instruments that allow for gases to be detected. Similarly, before I get ahead of myself, the sensitivity of the canary was so significant because, they had the sensitivity to detect when gases were present. And so they knew when the birds started fluttering, it was like, okay, we gotta get the heck up out of here because they couldn't figure out why people were just dropping dead and stuff. And so I think similarly in today's times, artists with our sensitive antennae, we're the best responders, or oftentimes the first responders to the change of culture and what's going on, to alert everyone else that like, hey, like, these conditions are alert worthy. Right. So it's like we're essentially just responding, and us being able to respond through relationships and stuff like that is, what seemed to be a tall order in the past now kind of just seems like it just makes sense because everyone's in a position to be like, okay, I'll use my expression or my voice in this way. And, other people are able to refer to that and stuff. So, yeah, man. Not to get off on that tangent, but just like how I guess for that, like, how do you kind of feel about everything that's like going on currently? Just about, as far as just what you're seeing in terms of the change that's going on in Cleveland, or do you recognize it as a change, or maybe it's just something that's forever just, a Cleveland thing, or is it not a Cleveland thing? Is it just an art world thing? Right. And is this just a larger conversation or a piece of a larger conversation that we're seeing happening locally that's just a symptom of something that's been kind of maybe brewing? Or what's your thoughts on that?
So I've only been in Cleveland for 10 years, which, I mean, it's a decade. So it's not nothing. But you know, if the question is like, what have I witnessed over the 10 years of like arts and culture, like changing or evolving, or I don't know, maybe even going backwards in ways in Cleveland. I think for me, it's interesting how there's just like always shifts of how work is being shared and where it can be seen. You know, for example, I remember Loop being like prominent spot for artists looking to get their work out there. Just, you know, a cafe, coffee shop to you know, display your work. You know, that place was the very first time that I like took my work and went, well, not the very first time, but amongst, you know, the initial kind of transitions of like work at a certain size and then translated to scales that could be for like public pieces, right? My art show at Loop was like very much a part of that, you know, that beginning. And I used that art show at Loop. Actually, I should step back because it's important to talk about the space. Because now that it's no longer there are some people that probably are like, what's Loop?
Like what?
Which is crazy, right? It's like, what is
Yeah.
Loop, right? So for those that don't know, you know, Loop was a coffee shop and record shop that had 2 floors, and the second floor actually overlooked the first floor, and there was a giant wall that had, I think like, maybe like anchor holes or something to install work on, right?
Yeah.
And most artists only took over half of the wall on the first floor. And I saw that wall as an opportunity to really create big things. And did 3 works, part of this series called Pantheon. And it was inspired by like the idea of like gods or deities. And they were like these like almost 5 feet by 8 feet tall prints on canvas, with like grommeted edges, right? Which made transportation super easy. You could just roll those up, you know, installation was easy, just right on the wall. And I use that as an example to show that I could take my work and scale it big. And you know, that's how I first connected with Land Studio, and that, you know, that work then led to my first public art work, and you know, in the city at Public Square and a bunch of other projects, and then it all kind of like started to snowball into like then museum exhibitions and more public projects and commissions and acquisitions and things like that. And I would have not had, like, my journey would have been different. My career would have looked not the same if Loop had not existed, if there wasn't, you know, that space that had that giant wall, and provided a visual opportunity for me to show that I can grow. And it's interesting to see how there are old spaces that have been around and they're able to survive, and they continue to just like do just that, and some of them close down, right? A lot of them are not even just like art institutions or galleries, they're just like coffee shops, or, you know, just places that are very much connected to art. And then there are new projects and you know, spots that open up in town. So it's always kind of like a constant like flux, right? So it's hard to kind of figure out like what is a singular point of change or growth in the art scene in Cleveland, especially for someone that has only been here for 10 years. I'm sure like if you talk to an artist who's been here for like 20 years, they might have a different answer. But I will say this, actually, there is something that's kind of inspiring that I've noticed, and hopefully I've contributed to this, but it's cool to see more Asian artists that are you know, having their work out there, you know, doing public projects and being featured. I talked with a photographer, and she told me that when she was a student, I was like the only professional artist that was Asian that she knew of here in Cleveland. Yeah. Which is crazy, which is like so crazy, because I'm definitely not the only one. Even at that time, I know there's many others, right? So it's interesting to see how like things are kind of changing too, you know, for certain, you know, communities and cultures, right? Like I feel like there's more work being shown
definitely
by, you know, artists from the Latinx or Latine, you know, community. We're starting to see like fashion kind of become more at the forefront with, you know, art, and especially with the institutions, like fashion talks is like an amazing thing. That's here in
it's like we turning into like a baby New York.
You know, like so, like it seems like there's more, and then of course there's things that have been around that are no longer around. But I think in general things are like on the up and up, and things are like kind of blossoming and growing outward.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. And I think I know you said like you haven't been here only but a decade, but I mean a lot changes in a decade.
Lot can change,
so I think it's still valuable to hear that insight. And I think too I'm glad that you touched on the fact that people are or have been recognizing you as able to, you know, really stand out and to be somebody that they can look up to and be like, hey, I see somebody that looks like me doing the thing that I want to do, and that changes the narrative so much.
Yeah.
So much. It means the world to have a mentor, somebody you look up to when you're just trying to figure it out and you're just trying to lock in, quote unquote, with something, and you know that you have this creative calling inside of you, but you just want to figure it out. And I think sometimes us being able to have people that come from our communities is you know, representation is very powerful, because it then allows for one to now go against the programming that they're put, that, you know, it allows for them to challenge the programming that is set before them to dream again, in short. And I feel like knowing how that totally changed my own personal trajectory, that's something that I feel really, really passionate about. So again, like we love to see it, man. We love to see it. I know like play and like even just being able to just be like be able to play quite literally on a table that you designed. Like how significant, or like what does play mean to you in like your practice?
Oh, I don't think I would have a practice if there wasn't an element of play. And honestly, play is like, it has to be like in the art making, you know, not just the result of it, which of course is what I'm working towards as well, but just the enjoyment of you know, the making and having this.
I'm gonna let you start it.
No worries. Just having like this.
I don't poem much, you know, man. I don't got no sport etiquette at all.
It's just like, you know, it's what happens in ping pong. But just like pure enjoyment of, you know, making it, that feeling like I get to play in itself, really is like, that's what allows me, I think, to put so much work into it, you know? And it's really those moments where it's like, ooh, like that was the right line weight, or like I'm so happy with this relationship I created with this drawn thing and this icon, or seeing how things translate.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, definitely. It's
just like messing around, just exploring, just kind of dancing with your own creativity and the thing that you're producing. You make a move in a way like the thing that you made the move on also is making its own moves that you're making moves again in relationship to. Like I know it's all coming from you, but sometimes it feels like some sort of like other thing, right? Like whenever you're working on a drawing or a painting, right? It's like the painting. You're having this relationship with the painting, but the painting is a reflection of you, right? So it's the same with like drawing, which honestly for me is like kind of a game of chess.
Yeah.
In a way. So
talk a little bit more about that.
Like chess?
Yeah, like just
making moves that feel right, that make sense, to you specifically, or to me specifically in regards to my own work, and kind of like, just playing games that I'm creating my own rules to, right? But also against serendipity, against possibility, or maybe not, I shouldn't say against, but more so with. Right? The blankness that is the page or the screen, right? Like, that's literally your game board.
Yeah.
Or your video game level, Yeah.
Dude, I love that. I know you're very passionate. It's interesting, because you mentioned this dance or this idea of dancing, and I know that you also are very talented at dancing.
Just tango.
At tango. And I think symbolically, that's beautiful how just all of these things are quite literally being demonstrated in your life, but then also in your practice, and then how you have work that then reflects back into these things as well.
It's funny you mention that because I'm kicking around a kind of like lecture and demonstration sorts, where it's the intersection of my creative approach in drawing and art making as well as tango.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot that intersects, that parallels, that mirrors, that inspires one another. So that's like something I'm kind of working on.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm stuck on that.
Yeah. Specifically, like this idea of kind of codifying creative elements, or kind of sharing like my approach to how I create a drawing and how that is so unique, or it's unique to the drawing, but how it also is really connected to tango as well, or how like my approach to tango, it's like, oh shit, he's doing this like with his steps, like that idea also translates to how he's drawing his lines, or the lines he's making in the dance also can be found in the actual drawings. So
it's funny how it all revolves around intentionality, right? It's like you can have a partner, and that once you put your foot down, if it's a toe under there, that's gonna hurt. So it's like I better be
right.
And same with a line, now whereas graphic design and painting, stuff like that are more forgiving, but stuff like drawing and stuff like that, it's kind of once you strike that surface, it's kind of it counts.
Yeah.
There is no, so I think that is very poetic how it all is very just relevant. And your process or just, as you're elevating in your career, how do you prioritize play and rest when you also equally are in this transitional phase? I'm sure things that may have served in terms of rest and play feel yourself outgrowing any of these things, and then like at a space where you're like, okay, time for new hobbies or new interests or new things, or like the things that have been serving you still serving you, or like what's that like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There was a time that I really felt like, man, I'm doing like one of three things, and it's either I'm working on art and everything related to that, going to yoga or going to tango, or sometimes both in the evening. So it's like one of those three things: art, tango, or yoga. And there was a point that it felt kind of like, oh, do I have a life? And I do. I very much do. Like most people would be like, it's an incredible life. And
but it feels like that.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't get that. They see us as being like, oh, you live in the thing, so like, what do you have to worry about? And it's like, well.
Right. And I think I get to those points when I'm like very much like in like an intensive part of a project or exhibition where I'm like I'm working nonstop. One, because I love to, and two, because I have to, so.
Yeah. How about dealing with like relationships and stuff like that too? Like just as far, I mean, not to get too personal, but just as far as like, having support or family or friends that might not understand fully what it's like to be an artist in these ways, because it's still so very new to people. But then also being able to, not put your loved ones in a position to where you're almost, putting all this heavy stuff on all the stuff that you're dealing with on them. Like, how have you been able to balance that personally?
I mean, I think just
see my technique. It's like I say something really gnarly.
And then you serve it for me to think about while I'm also playing. Yeah.
You put some money on this. But yeah, no, like I think about that a lot because I feel like it's stuff that we don't talk about enough as a community, and I think in a lot of regards too, there are a lot of aspiring creatives and or emerging creatives that are dealing with these or worrying about these things now, or so is there anything practical that you could like offer just in that regard? Or not even offer, but just more so just opening up about it, just so that people can see like, okay, this is a thing, and it's okay to feel these ways, or to just
I think, and this shouldn't really even be connected to anything, but just really kind of an ongoing practice and process is, truly constantly building your awareness and sensitivities to yourself and to others. So if you feel tired, okay, acknowledge that. Like, it's okay to acknowledge that, but then also, I think it's healthy to not just compound that feeling. You ever hear those people, they're just constantly tired?
Yeah.
Like, they say it once and then like next week they're again. And I get like everyone's situations and lives are different, and they truly may be exhausted, but do we have to, or let me rephrase it this way, it's like, okay, what could be done differently?
Yeah.
What kind of changes can be made to break free from these things that are repeating? And that only comes with awareness and also a commitment to yourself to do something differently, to create a new practice or establish a new devotion that better serves you and those in your life. So
it's almost kind of like what I'm kind of hearing is like it's a mindset thing too that comes with it.
Always.
So where it's like you could be reading all of the right books, you could be watching all of the YouTube, watching all the videos, all of the TikTok, but if this information isn't aligned with your values, then ultimately it's kind of just like, and just,
a lot of people don't really even know what their values are or what's really important to them. It's built upon like what was told had to act or care about things because, you know, that was a means of survival or acceptance. So, yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's definitely not easy.
Did you grow up in an environment where your parents were like, hell yeah, be an artist? Or was they like, what the heck are you thinking?
I don't even know if it was so much like, oh, hell yeah, be an artist, because myself, I wasn't like, hell yeah, I'm gonna be an artist.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, it's so funny, like, so many people ask me, like, when did you know you were an artist? I'm like, I don't know, 28? Like,
yeah.
Right? Like, I knew, like, I've always been doing art, and art was just a vehicle to, like, express the things that I was really fascinated about.
Yeah.
Like the hero's journey and that being told through anime and manga and video games and, you know, those incredible visuals, but it was never like, I'm making art. You know, that didn't come until kind of later.
Yeah.
You know? Especially coming from a background of graphic design, like it was like, oh, I was more focused on being a graphic designer and creating, you know, quality logos and identities that would serve the people that entrusted me with you know, their capital, with their money, with their investments, you know, to get them to where they want to be in their business. So like this idea of like being an artist, I think it was always there, but not so much like, oh, I'm an artist, I'm making art. Yeah. That in itself was a journey. And I think in regards to that kind of statement of, oh, I'm an artist, I'm making art, it's also the journey of earning trust, which takes form of creative control. And doing, like, being invested in to do your art, both in from the external, like from people that are hiring you, or investing in you, or featuring you, but also yourself.
Yeah.
You know, saying that to yourself.
Because it's like, why would somebody invest in you when you weren't necessarily investing in yourself?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I resonate with that a lot. It was something that I wanted to ask. I was also kind of inspired by that thought of kind of being in environments where it's like, okay, it's like you identified and was like, okay, I want to be an artist at this point and stuff like that. Oh, that's what it was. There, you know, so many people come into art at different points in their lives for different reasons, and there's a lot of different beliefs of like, oh, a lot of people are born with it, or this notion that
right.
You were born to be an artist and then therefore you were destined and it hasn't come at a certain point and, you know, just hang it up, forget about it, not knowing that it's a learned craft, it's something that you can dedicate hours in, but you can see results in that, and I guess game point, no, I'm talking shit. I think like my quote, what I want to ask is like, what would you say to any artist that's like, oh, I'm coming from a background of graphic design, or I'm coming from a world of only just doing crafts, but I want to get in galleries, I want to be able to show my works around the world and stuff like that. What would you say to those people who feel like, oh, it's too late in the game for me to lock in, so to speak?
You know what? And I've experienced this in talking with some artists. There's actually, and there's something kind of tragic about this, but it also kind of reemphasizes how it's one's decision and how, again, it comes back to mindset. There's actually nothing I can say to change those people. They have to make that decision for themselves.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe I can create something that's shared with the world and they're there and it inspires them to make that decision for themselves. Mm-hmm. But there's actually nothing that I can say to those people because they'll just fall on deaf ears. They'll create reasons for why it won't work, you know, and you know, I'm not trying to convert anyone, right? Like, right? And that's why I think in doing like some of the different workshops that I've done, I was very clear in like, what is this thing? What is my approach, right?
Yeah.
This is what I'm trying to share specifically. And I believe that resonated with a lot of different artists, and they themselves made the decision of like, I want to hear these ideas and use them, you know, to get to where I want to be. So they already made the decision that their practice and career is important enough for them to invest time and money into being better at it.
Yeah.
But artists that have just practiced like finger pointing and like, oh, you have to be this, that, or the other, or you know, it's one on that, right? Just kind of like all these external factors. I'm to this, I'm to that.
Yeah.
I can't really help them. I can only, you know, it's kind of like the whole like, you can only lead a horse to water.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. That part. Kind of thing, right?
Yeah. It's like you have to be convinced, or there's a personal conviction that is almost kind of required for entry.
I think you have to.
Or could be, I guess, depending on what
I
you
think
want.
it's just asking the question of like, what do you want and what are you willing to do to get it, you know? But again, the question of what do you want that's a tough one.
That's crucial.
That's a tough one. Because like a lot of times you'll be like, well, I want this, and it's like, okay, but what do you really want?
Yeah, like
right?
actually.
Yeah. Because the idea of like, even as an artist, saying like, I want to exhibit in museums, it's like, okay, it's like, but is that why you create art? To exhibit in museums? It's like, no, of course not. There's another deeper reason, right? But to say like, oh, I want to exhibit in museums as a stepping stone to, you know, share my work in this way or fashion, or, you know, build it out so I can come back and do greater forms of it, or it gives me resources to play with new ideas, like that turns it into a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Because then you're recognizing kind of like, you're starting to like kind of develop plans on how they connect to what you really want, if that makes sense.
No,
totally.
Totally. Man, so great just being able to just sit here and chop it up. And I think like just in some kind of closing thoughts or questions, you know, like did you ever see yourself being being at this point that you're at, like today, like when you first started? Like, was this ever something that, I guess it's like, well, yeah, I'll leave it open like that. But like, you know, yeah, how does it feel, bro? Like, to be at this stage of
It's very much like kind of like looking backwards with gratitude, and then like looking forward with excitement and possibility, and a little bit of nervousness too.
Yeah.
You know, like, because I'm setting my sights for, you know, the next mountaintops, which includes to like a new studio space, actually building out the studio where I have, you know, people that are employed, you know, by me, whether they're contractors or like, I don't know, full-time employees, right? Like getting assistant, like starting to make strides to having the studio. It's always been more than me, but it's been like kind of like outside, you know, makers that I'm inviting in. Now we're talking about cultivating like almost like that inner team, right? So, and that comes with new financial goals, you know, for sure, requirements, right? And ideas of growth, or even like big dreams of like, you know, establishing one studio, but it's like, okay, I want 3 studios, like one in Cleveland, one in the West Coast somewhere, you know, maybe San Francisco, and then like one like in Taiwan or something crazy, you know, crazy like that, which is not that, it's not that crazy, right?
Closer now than when you started.
And I think it's important for every artist to realize that everything that they do is closer to what they want, especially if they're able to contextualize it into where they want to go, right? And able to really strategically think, okay, I did this. This allows me to then go for that, right? Or I created this thing, and I can share that as a way to earn opportunities to do it at an even greater scale. So really leveraging and positioning things that you're doing and sharing it in inspiring ways to grow your practice and get new opportunities. That's so crucial.
Yeah, absolutely.
To the practice.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. Well, we see you exploring and like getting into the space of new materials, sculptures, and being able to quite literally demonstrate how, you know, working with different collaborators will look and what we have to look forward to and stuff. What's next for Jake Wong? Like, what can the people look forward to?
Wrapping up Transformative Arts Fund by the end of September. It's our culmination event is Saturday, September 27th, and all 5 public artwork installations will be on site and completed for the community and everyone to enjoy and celebrate. So that's the next like big thing, like immediately. But I'm making some moves. I might have my next museum exhibition lined up.
Fire.
So starting to kind of solidify those details, as well as crafting some collaboration projects in 2026, and just making more
making more bangers.
Yeah,
bro. No, I love it, man.
For sure.
Let the people know where they can find you.
Sure.
You know, websites, social medias, anything you want to plug in for
Yeah.
the people so they can find you.
So my website, super easy, WONGFACE.com, WONGFACE, and then I'm on Instagram at WONGFACE. Also on Facebook. If you search WONGFACE, you should be able to find me. And yeah, those are like the best ways to like kind of see what I'm working on.
Fire.
Say hi.
My brother. That's the wrap, folks.
It's you. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao.